welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns podcast for October 8th, 2025. My name is Tom Luongo. We have a lot to talk about. It is episode 233, and with everything weird happening I wouldn't say weird because it's kind of good, but maybe good is weird, happening in the gold and silver markets. It's been a long time, well, too long. Actually, it's not been that long, but every time I don't talk to Vince Lanci for more than 2 weeks, I kind of get a little twitchy. But before I bring Vince in, if you care about your liberty and the right to control your own future, I need to inform you of something very cool. This weekend, October 10th through the 12th, Mikhail Thorup, host of the Expat Money Show, is bringing together top experts from around the world for the Expat Money Online Summit. It's completely free to attend. You'll learn how to legally protect your wealth, secure second residences and citizenships, reduce your tax burden, and own property abroad, all to safeguard your freedom. Now, this year's focus is Latin America, where opportunity is booming. Argentina is shifting to free markets. El Salvador is undergoing a dramatic transformation, and Panama and Paraguay are offering simple residency programs. A plan B is no longer optional, folks. It's essential. So reserve your free ticket at expatmoneysummit.com. That's expatmoneysummit.com. Vince, how are you?
I'm good. The longing from not speaking for so long is mutual. My heart, my bleeding heart goes out to you. No, I mean, look, I mean, we've had 6 months in a week, basically. That's what's happened in the metals. So, talk about it when you can, not when you have to, I guess, is the way to look at it.
Well, since we tried to do this last week and you had to beg off for, because you
That's
were
right.
overscheduled, you were too much. I
I was
I got
napping.
busy and then I couldn't get back to you for 7 days. So what's that?
I was napping. I needed to nap.
Oh, sometimes we do. Like, dude, I did the week before we were supposed to do that podcast last Monday, right? But the
Right,
previous
right,
weekend, I was traveling all over the state. I was down to Naples to record a Rogan-esque podcast, with some Bitcoin guys, and I drove across the state to visit, Chris Marcus and friends over
yeah,
there, and then I had to drive home, right? And like, I back up to North Florida. Like I put 900 or 1,000, like 900 miles on my truck in 2.5 days without getting any sleep, doing multiple podcasts. So I got like 6 hours of sleep both nights. And
right,
like I did 16, 17-hour days. Was amazed I didn't actually get sick. Uh,
right.
and then I came home and I was like, okay, let's do the thing with Vince. And then I'm taking 3 days off. And then you said, hey man, I don't want to, I have to beg off. And I'm like, that's okay, Vince. I'm fucking exhausted. So it's all good, man.
Yeah,
With that being said, I think the one thing we're not exhausted or is not exhausted at this moment in time is
right,
what's going on in gold and silver.
right,
And as we sat down to record, I, pop open the markets and I look at them and I say to myself, okay, this is something weird. And I know that you've been killing it over on Twitter, keeping people apprised of what's going on in the silver market. And we
right,
have long-standing, slight disagreement between you and I about what silver's role is in the global monetary picture.
right.
But what's happening right now is really important. And what I noted the minute we sat down to do this is that for the first time I've seen in years and years, the spot price of silver is trading 40 cents over the futures price of silver. And it's over $49. And the last time I checked this morning, it was just barely hitting 48. And that was after yesterday's washout that took it into the low 47s. At the same time, gold is in the same kind of a similar position it's been, a typical contango with the futures price about $20 over
Right.
the spot price. So, Vince, what in the fuck is going on in silver?
Okay. Well, that's pretty much it. You just pretty much nailed it. Okay. Over the last, say, 6 months or 8 months with Trump with the tariff thing, and the fact that we had what was deemed a squeeze on the COMEX because the futures went into backwardation. It behooves us. I can't believe I'm using that word. It behooves us to define the word backward fucking dation. Okay, because people are throwing it around like it's something that you can just use like a term of art. It actually has a definition. Now, I'm not going to get wonky on it, but the backwardation that you're describing now is infinitely more important than the backwardation we had with the tariff risk. So, for a second to get the tariff risk backwardation out of futures in the US trade at spot plus the cost of carry. So let's say it's $45 plus the cost of carry, opportunity cost. I'm going to simplify it, call it 50 cents. So silver is $45 in London. The spot is $45.50 in New York. I'm not spot, the futures are, because 30 days out, it costs 50 cents to borrow that money. That's a normal situation. And you just described gold as that, I think. Where's gold right now?
Gold is trading at the futures is 40.75 roughly, and the spot price is 40.52.
Right. That's normal. That's normal. And normal is the difference between 40.52 and 40.75 represents borrowing over the amount of months you have. That's it. That's carry. Now, during the whole tax squeeze and all that other shit, what you really had was you had people buying COMEX silver at a much higher price than they should have been buying it simply because they thought they wouldn't be able to pull it from London anymore. So
Mm,
they were front running the tariffs. The tariffs didn't happen. But what we're talking about, and that's what I would call a regulatory or venue squeeze. Oh, I can't ship my silver from here to there. I can't buy my cigars from Cuba and bring them to the US. I'm going to buy them before the embargo, which is
right.
essentially what JFK did, right? Okay. So that's what people do. People were front running the tariffs, front running the Cuban embargo. And that turned out to be horseshit, at least for now. The real problem, which is what we're in now, and it's amazing that it's slow motion. I don't want to digress too much, is this.
Mhm.
The spot market, whether it's in London or Chicago or New York, the physical bar of silver should be cheaper. Well, in gold's case, gold should be cheaper than the future because gold is money. And the
Right.
difference between money today and money 30 days from now is the interest you pay on the money.
Right.
And that's why gold is, what would you say, 40.52 in spot and 40.75 in D's futures. The
Hmm.
difference is the interest rate, all the other little nuances. That's the difference. Okay. So
Hmm.
that's why the price is higher there. You're like, okay, fine, I get it. But in a commodity not like gold, which is where silver isn't like gold, that's consumed, you can get it back, but it's used in industry. It's used now in a sense like food, I need it, like energy, I need it.
Hmm.
When that short term demand becomes overwhelming to the financial aspect of, oh, the interest rate over 5 months is this or that, you see the spot market creep up against the futures price.
Right.
What you almost never see is the spot market go over the futures price for any length of time. That means I want the silver now. I don't want it tomorrow. I'm willing to pay what we would call, use this is an energy term. When the spot market in London in this case is trading higher than the futures market in the US, that indicates that people want convenience, meaning I don't want to buy it now and take delivery 30 days from now. I want to buy it now and have it now.
Hmm.
So the cost of carry becomes a cost of convenience. I want it in my hand now. And that's where silver is. And that's the important difference
Mm.
between silver and gold. Now, we have different appreciations for the differences, but I'll just start by saying, in almost cliche fashion now, gold is money, but silver is more, meaning it has monetary aspects. It can't be destroyed. It can be lost and recovered. It can't be grown. It can't be fabricated. But industrially, it's cheap enough to use for things. Can't use gold for anything. And as a result of that, its inexpensiveness makes it more expensive. And so from time to time, you'll see silver tighten relative to the futures. I need the spot tomorrow. I mean, you're not going
Mhm.
to eat it. It's not wheat. Why can't you wait 30 days? Well, because China and India have been buying silver hand over fist for the last year or two, and the US now is in the act buying it over the last 6 months, filling up the COMEX vaults. And this is where you get the silver problem. The thing about gold is, and this is, I love this about the bullion banks, this is why they're morons. And not morons, they're rich morons who get bailed out by the government. Most of the bullion banks. The bullion banks for many reasons, have been so comfortable just being short gold because the worst case scenario is it's not used. You could always call up a buddy and borrow from him,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
then you get your contango. Oh, how much is the price of gold? It's $4,000. Okay, well, I want to borrow for 3 months, 90 days. So that's about $20. All right. So if you give it to me now in physical form, I'll give it to that idiot across the street who wants to buy it and have it in his hands. And I'll take it from you at the same price plus $20 90 days from now. And the guy goes, fine. And we're done. And that behavior, by the way, all that gold that people are borrowing from each other, that's central banks that are willing to lend it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the BIS,
Mm-hmm.
which is the trading arm of the IMF, which is the banking arm of the WEF or
And the Crown
right.
Corporation and the City of London and
Right. That plays right into like the we always end up agreeing from different perspectives, and
yep.
that's what I'm getting at. So the bankers on the desk, traders like myself, be like, oh, I can get it any time. And so they do that with gold and they make money hand over fist for 30 years. Now they do that with silver as well, because there is plenty of silver around for years above ground.
Mm-hmm.
But they do it like it's gold. And they assume that someone's going to have it. But there's no central bank that has silver.
Right.
Central banks have been pissing on silver for the last 10 years,
No,
you
they've
know?
been no, Vince. They've been dishoarding silver since the 1960s.
Right, right. But I mean, they finally ran out about in terms of the offload about 10 or 15 years ago.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right. And that was always and that was, I remember back then, just to interject for a second, go back and do a little history lesson, about 10 to 15 years ago, whenever it happened, when the central banks finally sold their last ounce of silver, that was a big thing within the industry. Oh, all the commentators were out there, all the silver bulls were out there going, this is the moment where silver is going to lift off, blah, 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 blah. And they weren't really wrong, because it was right around 2008 through 2010 that we saw a huge upswing in the price of silver. Of course, it got way ahead of itself, but
right,
what we wound up with was a huge blow off top, which all the bad guys made money on, and trapped a whole bunch of muppets at the top at $49,
right,
when really the actual price of silver at that point, given that there was no central bank vault to play the wash game with, the lending game with, it was probably around 20 or 25, as opposed to the four that was trading at 15 years, 10 years previously when the bull
right,
market started, right?
right,
So it went from
right,
4 to 20, but it hit 49, even though that was bullshit price, when the reality
right,
is, and they all knew the difference, and they all knew it, and they all made money on the spread
right.
on the way up.
And one of the architects of that was, believe it or not, of the short squeeze higher was JP Morgan,
Of course.
because everyone thinks they're always bearish. They're not always bearish. They play the game that has to be played.
Of course.
And yeah,
Oh, I remember Jim Sinclair talking about this directly. He always kept saying, by the way, folks, the people who you hate the most are the ones that are going to make the most money in gold and silver. That's
that's
just the way
right.
this world works. And
That's right.
if you're not comfortable with that, pick up a rifle and do something about it, or stop trading it. And I always kept telling, I've told people for years, if you don't want to, if you don't have the stones to trade gold and silver, which most people don't, and you don't have the skills, then trade
Right.
Microsoft. Is a lot fuckload easier.
Right.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Exactly. So the silver thing gets interesting because and this I'm describing what's happening now, but
Mm-hmm.
it's echoing what Buffett did in 97. Mr.
Mm.
Nice Guy. Mr. Nice Guy's not so nice. So
Oh no,
what you're pointing out is, let's start with the math, right? Silver is trading how many cents over spot?
it was like
I mean,
40 cents.
over
It's
futures?
roughly, it's still at it's trading 40 cents over spot.
Okay, great. So let's call it 40 cents over spot, right? I mean, over futures.
Mm-hmm.
Spot is 40 cents over futures. So there's a bar of silver. It's sitting in my hand. It can't be destroyed. It can't be consumed. Yeah, I might have to recover it or extract it from a phone, but it's here. There's no boll weevil that's going to eat it. There's no disease that's going to affect it.
Right.
And you say, but I still need it now. In fact, I need it so much that I'm willing to pay reverse interest rates on it.
Yep.
So silver's trading $48 in spot. It should be roughly, let's call it, I'm making a number up, but it's pretty accurate. Every month should add 20 cents to it.
Okay.
Okay. So
Right.
$48 in spot means 48.20, 48.60, 48.80 for the December futures.
Mm.
That's a 60-cent spread that I'm making up, but it's probably close.
Right.
So not only is silver backwardated from spot to futures, it's backwardated from spot to 90-day futures.
Yeah. Right.
That's a right.
That's
So
amazing. Right.
you and I are talking about 40 cents. That's a lot. It's huge,
Yeah.
but it's huger by another 60 cents. It's ridiculous.
Right, right. Because you should be at minus 20 and you're at positive 40. So that's a
Yeah,
60-cent move. And
yeah,
that
yeah,
and
exactly,
at 20
exactly.
cents a month, that's a 3 month. That means the 90-day contract. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Got
it's even worse. So people forget that the December contract is really deferred, and that's because the industry likes to have the December contract be its prompt contract sooner. So if you'll notice, if anybody is a metal
Mhm.
persons out there, if you look at silver and gold, every month alternates expiration. So it's
Yes.
Feb gold, March silver,
Right.
April gold. Right. So, but December is where they both line up
Oh, I
because
didn't. Okay, that always fucked me up. I didn't realize that. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And the reason they can have, you have to have 1 month lineup because of the even odd thing. But they make it December because they don't hedge quarterly. They don't hedge semi-annually. They all hedge in December. It's
Right.
all December. And everything that happens is the December contract.
Right.
And what happens between January and
Oh
December
wow.
is they're selling like I'm a miner, right? And let's say I'm a normal operation. I'm hedging my 2026 production in December. Why? There's no crop, there's no bug, there's no
Right.
problem. I hedged the whole year in 1 month. Boom, it's the same gold. And I sell it to a bullion bank that's buying December 27. And the bullion bank goes, December 27, I just bought it. Who am I going to sell it to hedge my money and make my VIG like a bookie? And I go, oh, okay, I've got buyers in spot, I've got buyers in 1 month out, and they hit the bid and they create this spread position. They're spread traders, right?
Right.
They have to know all this stuff, right? So now I'm setting it up for silver. So now a silver producer, few and far in between that they are, a silver producer has been selling you December 26, December 27 in silver. And you're buying it and you're going, it's a financial spread. It's a cost of carry. It's a contango. Fuck it. I'll sell these 25. And now these 25, which should be 60 cents under, let's say D27, is now 40 cents over. You're getting reamed. No different than if you were trading energy
Right.
and you were trading spreads. And I know you do a lot of energy. So it's no different than being like short, dece in oil or being short a dece crack spread
Mhm.
in gas to oil. So these guys are carrying these guys are short metal that's going to be delivered in 90 days, and they're long metal that's going to be delivered in 2 years. And so they have the same silver, but the guys who want it, the Indians, the Chinese, they can't be bought off. They want it now.
Yeah.
And so the LBMA, which has been going like this, I'll borrow silver for him. I'll borrow silver from him, and I'll just borrow that silver, and I'll pay a little bit of vig, and I'll mark it up on the other side, and I'll get out. And now that silver's not there anymore. This
Mhm.
is the this is the crisis of collateral that Pozar was talking about in 2022.
Right. God, no, I got it. And that's really interesting. And then if you add so you're talking India and China. Now what
Yeah.
happens when the United States joins the party?
Yeah. This is speculation, but Eric Young, and you know Eric Young very well. I think you introduced us. We're all mutuals, the three of us. We should probably do something together.
Mm.
Eric Young and I were talking about that, and we are of the opinion from different sides of the tracks that the reason this is a little bit of conspiracy theory for you, but it's
In this
complete.
podcast? Come on.
Right, exactly. But it shows you that the people in the Trump administration, Bissent, for example, know what they're doing. Okay,
Absolutely.
this is what we concocted, Eric and I. We believe that between Trump's election and Trump going in office in January, whatever it was, January 26th, China said, and India said, well, China and their buddies, right? China said, oh shit, Trump's going to be in office. He did tariffs last time. He might do it this time. Let's start to de-dollarize a little faster.
Hmm.
And and around this time, you started to see the things that I have been talking about, which is the vaults are being built, the networked vaults are being
Hmm.
built, the internationalization of the yuan. And so they're selling bonds and they're buying gold and they're setting up vaults and they're doing contracts in renminbi or yuan, how you look at it. And I think the US finally woke up
Hmm.
and started paying attention to these facts. Number one, China has been taking off our copper and silver scrap out of the US for the last 10 years
Yep.
under the radar. And that
Yep.
comes from the copper part comes from, I'm not sure if I can say his name, but comes from not a mining, a fabricating professional
Hmm.
who said that all China has been doing has been taking our scrap copper out through Atlanta. There's a big refinery there, and
Hmm.
they've been taking it out. Now, I had identified that China had been buying raw silver unprocessed in Latin America before it even hits the market. So they're cleaning out all the crap,
Yep.
not affecting the price. And they're doing all that. And I think, to stay on point, I think by the end of the year, the US figured out that that was going on. Now, they
Yep.
probably knew it, it just wasn't a priority. It's just like,
Or the Biden junta didn't care because the Biden junta didn't work for the United States.
right, exactly. That's
That's the
right.
that's the more obvious play. They just turned a blind eye to everybody raping us because they were setting us up for dissolution after the 2024 election because they all expected Trump to be shot and killed in Butler, Pennsylvania, and we'd be on a different timeline. But we're not on a different timeline. So Trump comes in, and the minute like Trump starts with moving, in with Besant, and remember that he was all set to be Howard Lutnick as Treasury Secretary, and then
Right.
somebody introduced him to Scott Bessent, and 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, Scott Bessent is Treasury because
Thank God.
oh,
Thank
no, I
God.
know, I agree, I completely, but understand that this is a very big point because Bessent understands these things because he's had a front row seat to how to manipulate currency, bond, gold, and
Yeah,
silver markets, trading with George Soros all those years ago,
right.
and he knows exactly where the bodies are buried. And he, by the way, knows who the fuck Soros works for.
Right.
So never,
Right.
never, ever under a. And if you are not, if for some reason you think that George Soros works for the WEF and the WEF isn't the fucking crown, and all of this isn't just MI6, I'm sorry, folks. You are missing the freaking point. My friend Richard Poe has the receipts on this. George Soros has been working for MI6 since the day he was recruited 50, 70 years ago. Like, that's bullshit. Everything he's ever done has been done in service of London and the Eurodollar system and everything else. That's what he's always done, including taking out Maggie Thatcher and shorten the pound in order to get them into the euro, into the European Union. The goal eventually was to get them into the European Union. The only way that was going to happen is if he got rid of Thatcher.
That is so
So
fucking outrageous. But it's I
it's
don't.
not even outrageous, dude. It's literal history
No, no,
that has
no, no,
been whitewashed because George Soros is literally the most protected person, other than Barack Obama, in the media.
no. Before I let me explain what outrageous means. We've been here before.
Right.
You have said something. I said, wait a minute, that's a little bit out there. And then 3 months later, I go, oh shit, because you're connecting dots based on relationships and people and nations. And I'm connecting dots based on commodities and price and profit. So I'm
Right.
following money. You're following money as it goes through individual relationships.
Right.
And I'm incredibly naive with this whole, MI6, stuff. But you know what? About a year ago, I started plugging into that, and it's so true. Like I look at Elon Musk, for example, and I go, "Oh, Trump won. Elon Musk is going to go." I mean, I said this. Elon Musk is going to go to Argentina, and he's going to promote democracy there, and Argentina is going to become our ally in Latin America. And I go, "Holy shit!" And then it happens. Then we're going to demonize Venezuela, and we're going to demonize. He's going to. And I went, "Wait a minute. These are basically influencers." So what I'm getting at is, I think that Soros is a finance guy who buried the Bank of England. What he is he's using your lens now and not saying, I'm saying it's outrageous that I haven't thought of this.
Oh, okay.
It's not outrageous. I mean, it's not outrageous wrong. Like a year and a half ago, Powell's not going to ease. Powell's not going to ease. Powell's not going to ease. Me, you're wrong. Nah, you're wrong. I'm like, oh, he's right. Oh shit, he's right. And then it ties in with the whole WEF and all that shit, and that happened. So now I'm looking. I mean, look, you come to me for stuff that I look at through my lens, and,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here to pick your brain as well. So
Sure.
to bring it back to present on Soros, here I am with the advanced intelligent version of Soros. He saw that the Bank of England was having problems and he shorted the pound. And as a result of that, he's a powerful person. No, you're saying since World War II, he has been an asset of MI6 because of his relationships. And like any good asset, he gets paid or financed with windfalls of contracts, like Elon Musk did. That's how
Mhm.
it works. And I'm not familiar with that. So when you say to me that Soros is a kept man, I say outrageous. But you know what? It's fucking probably true. So,
It absolutely is, dude. The more you watch it, the more it's obvious. Like it's it is. But we're off point. We're going back to let's go back to what we were talking about.
no, no, he's going to factor in, by the
Oh,
way.
I know.
Oh,
Of
no,
course he is. Oh no, of course he is because Trump is actively now going after him.
no, no,
And
no. So I'm not saying you're wrong. Soros factors in with silver
oh, I know he does.
in the past.
Oh, I know.
Um,
I know.
um,
But
yeah.
so
So,
but
so
let's but let's put
where
let's
are
take
we?
a bow on to what we got off on the distraction of me like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Vince. So let's put a bow on that part of the podcast. So we
right.
know that silver that now the Bank of England or the LBMA and
Yeah,
everybody else
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they are in serious freaking trouble here is what you're trying to say. This
Right,
is different than what we've seen before. That
right,
this is a structural problem.
right, right.
If I'm reading you correctly, if
No,
I'm
no, you're
reading
reading it right. You're reading it right. So,
okay.
so
So now go through why you think this is not going to change anytime soon. Because if the United States has joined India and China and or Russia through
right,
proxies to drain the silver market, then we've drained
right,
gold from the
right,
LBMA. Now we're draining the LBMA of their silver. What are the net effects here? And what do you, I mean, because really, I mean, the big
right.
question
Okay.
it
So
has here is how far can this fucking go? Because I didn't even think it can go this far.
I think it's going to be a series of short squeezes, a
Okay.
series of mini squeezes. But
That's
I
what I
can
think.
tie your politics with my observations
Mm-hmm.
with regards to silver. Now, do China and India want to destroy the silver market? Do they want to corner the silver? No, no, no. They want to destroy the pricing power of the West over key commodities. And
Exactly.
if you take the price, this is our first conversation
Mm-hmm.
about this stuff. When we were talking about if you can get the pricing power, turn those machines back on. If
Mm-hmm.
you can control the pricing power, then you can reward the other BRICS nations that produce these commodities
Right. Right.
and you can drive them higher. So,
So all I want to say is I'm going to interject and say that first conversation we had about this is the episode titled Vince Lanci and Gold is the New Black, which is where we started talking about all of this stuff like 3 years ago. And I'm going to make
right,
sure that there are a link in the show notes because I keep coming back to that one. It's almost as important as where I explained Davos and the 5 basis points that changed the world. That podcast, Vince, has paid so many dividends down the line. Personally, dude, like as far as I'm concerned, thank God we did it because
yeah.
it's the receipt that has now just kept paying dividends over and over and over and over again. So,
We constructed the roadmap for the marketplaces using your geopolitical insights and my understanding of how the market had to move, how things were going. And yeah, it's been a roadmap. And so we're here to go through that now because
mhm.
having that roadmap in our pockets allows me to say with confidence the following.
Right.
China wants to reduce the US's stranglehold on the pricing of commodities because that is one of the pillars that supports the dollar as a global reserve currency. And that's
Sure.
not a paranoid statement. That's just how it works.
Sure.
Okay. So I believe, and this is where Eric Young comes in. I believe, and Eric believes that whether it's because of the scrap leaving the country or the accumulation of China, or they got wind of China getting into the process of making gold an HQLA asset. Besant said, "This is me. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but I don't know." But at some point, we said, "Oh shit, we better start getting our silver and our gold back." We repatriated what was ours that was held overseas. We bought more and add more. And that was the Federal Reserve, not the Federal Reserve, but the government itself buying some. Now, I have made the joke, and it's actually not a joke, that, if you open the Fort Knox vault, you'll find moths and IOUs. There's no gold left in there, but I think we probably have as much, if not more gold. And so the panic at the end of the
which is
year,
which is interesting that you say that. I just want to stop you there because
good.
you and I talked about, I guess 6 months ago, I think you and I were talking about this very thing, and this is the first time I started thinking about this very thing early in Bessent's tenure when I started watching them during the LBMA back in February. And I'm like, dude, I bet you there's more gold in Fort Knox than is on our balance sheet.
Oh yeah,
I'll bet you dollars to dog shit. Brent Johnson said the same thing, but he and I and you are maybe the only people saying that. Everybody else is still out there screaming that
right,
the
right,
United States doesn't have anything. I'm like, oh bullshit. That gold has not gone anywhere.
right,
Leased
right.
out 100 times over. That's a different story. But you know what? Possession is 9/10 of the law, and contracts are made to be reneged on. Sorry,
Right.
counterparty risk. Get over yourself.
So let me underline that so
Sure.
people understand the point. I want you to imagine that the U.S. not imagine this happened. The U.S. Treasury through the Federal Reserve loaned its gold out to the bullion banks starting in Clinton's first term, 92,
Yep.
93.
Yep.
That was Greenspan having a conversation with oh shit, Rubin,
Ruben.
okay, right? And Clinton, who at the time said, and this is not me talking, this is research and it's been documented, saying we Clinton said, as a neoliberal, he said, I need to appease the bond vigilantes. That means we need to keep gold in its place. And so the
Mm-hmm.
bullion bank said, I have an idea. Loan us your gold. We'll give you 50 basis points for it. And we'll give you an IOU,
Right.
figuratively or literally, and we will just sell it into the marketplace and keep a lid on it. Greenspan was like, that's great because he understands gold. The
Right.
Fed was like, that's great. We get to do something with the pet rock.
Mm-hmm.
And Clinton's like, that's great. The bond vigilantes have to shut up.
And
And
I get
so
to
that,
balance, and I get to balance the budget.
yeah, exactly. And so for years, that went on. Now this part is observation. I don't have substantiation for it.
Sure.
But in 2023, the uh, JP Morgan, Citibank, and a couple of other banks had off their books in a separate account all of their gold derivatives exposure.
Yeah.
And that was, I believe, that was the derivatives exposure tied to the IOUs, tied to the gold that the US loaned them.
Yep.
So the US didn't sell the gold, it loaned it to them.
Right.
And I believe, I can't prove this, but I believe that at some point, Besant said, oh shit, China really is going to do something with gold. We want to have more, not less gold, because if you look at the Mar-a-Lago agreement, it says we need the gold
Yep.
so we can hedge it. All these other financial things aside, and Besant said, let's get our gold back. And so
Mm-hmm.
he probably started calling IOUs from JP Morgan, said,
Mm-hmm.
you've been carrying that note, rolling this gold in for 30 years. We want to make sure you have it. You got it? And I'm sure JP Morgan said, yeah, we do. And they said, just give us 6 months to get it. And so all that gold started coming back. All that gold that came back, it's like monetary gold, non-monetary gold,
Sure.
your mother's, crucifix, your cousin,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything was coming back and being melted down. And that's why the refiners. So I believe we took back the gold. Look, if I'm JP Morgan and my note's getting called and I have to buy, let's say, 10 tons of gold, I'm going to buy 20
Right.
because I'm JP Morgan, right?
It's
So,
great, of course.
right? So,
And then
so
I'm going to
they
use that
built,
other 10 to buy. I'm going to use that other 10 and hedge it and use the profits off the hedge to buy another five. And then so
right.
10 becomes 25. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's, of course.
Rehypothecation works both ways. We just
I know, of
borrow
course, of course.
to buy now. Okay. So now you've got London. This plays right to your whole, like, London is a piece of shit thing. And it's true. London is in the middle, having been, and I say this genuinely before we met. London has been preserved as the financial center of the world as a convenience to us. And because the financial center of the world was between Europe's old money and America's new money, and Asia was an afterthought. So London works in the middle. We can trade both sides of it. But as we're pulling our gold and our silver back, and then some, China and India are as well. They have been doing it for years. And we're the incumbents. We can afford to wait to the last minute. That's what we did.
Right.
And so who's in the middle there? Well, you've got London, which the
Zurich.
LBMA, for those of you not familiar, the LBMA is nothing. The LBMA is the table that sits in between the bullion banks. It's
Yeah.
the association that regulates it. It's the
It's,
bureaucratic,
yeah.
post Bretton Woods, neo Keynesian piece of shit thing that we don't need. Now, I'm not saying we don't need bureaucracies in some level, but I am saying this one didn't do its job.
or or it did its job very, very well, Vince. All
Yeah.
depends on your point of view. Okay.
Right, right.
From our point of view, no, it didn't serve our interest. And did it serve the high table's interest or Davos's interest or whatever you want to call them?
That's right.
Yes, you
That's right.
calling them the dinner table that we all day is perfect because I've now been I've been now using the John Wick idea of the high table.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, the high table is so fucking Davos is not funny. Like the whole
yeah.
thing.
Right.
Like
It's true.
so and we are John Wick.
Right, right,
Like okay, so but my point being is um that the LBMA existed, and this is it existed in order to keep a lid on the price of gold and the whole gold vol washing thing. In order, that this was the whole point. Now,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
interestingly enough, I read some stuff the other day that finally like connected all these dots that I've been like over this target for years, and they finally like look. The Crown Corporation, the British East India Company, morphed into and became the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, all of this stuff. It's all the same company, DTCC. It's all the same fucking thing. The Crown technically owns all of these assets.
Right,
That's why you can't say, "Oh, the British Empire is over." There's a bunch of fucking, they're just a bunch of sexually uptight,
right,
upper class twits of the ear. No, they're not. They're absolutely still fucking running all of these things, and you have to once you like make that a like you instantiate that and like make it your raison d'etre, you realize you see it fucking everywhere, and you're like, oh, that's what Trump is doing, and then you realize that all of that shit, including the gold manipulation,
right,
the currency manipulations, the forex manipulations, and everything else, are all run by organized crime because they run all the organized crime syndicates around the world as well.
right,
Once you realize that, then you understand why Trump is bombing Venezuela,
right,
why he's doing this, why he's doing that. All of those things make perfect sense now when you see it from the literally the John Wick high table thing. Because what is
right,
the John Wick movies? It's all about friggin' organized crime and the
right,
secret organization of organized crime. That's the cool.
right. Exactly. Um, um, you know, you reminded me of when we were having these conversations before, and I was going, "Oh yeah, he's right. Oh yeah, he's right." And the answer was when you strip all the bullshit away,
Mm-hmm.
you find out cui bono, who benefits, and the flip side, who gets hurt, whatever the opposite, cui sinestra, I'm sure. But when I try and strip stuff down, and I go, so neocon, and I'm like going the Suez Canal. I'm like, all right, so who benefits? The U.S. benefits, but I never went that far. So when you say, for example, Israel, London, WEF, Davos, I go WEF, Davos, IMF, BIS. I don't see the crown. I don't see London. I
Right,
don't see
right,
Israel in
right.
that. And so that's the missing piece for me. And if you just go who really, really, really benefits, it comes down to the financial center of the world that doesn't want to give up the financial centerness of the world,
Of course.
which is the euro dollar bankers. And the euro
Which
dollar
is
bankers,
right. And the Eurodollar and the center of the Eurodollar banking system is in London, Zurich, Frankfurt, Venice, mostly
right,
still London,
right.
and to a lesser extent New York. And
They
New
hate
York is still
stablecoin, whether they work or not. They're like, oh my God, please don't have those. Like
yeah.
that
And
creates a new
so one of the interesting parts about all this, so what we described here, so one thing, let's just put a bow on the whole silver thing, is we should expect to see this backwardation in silver. It's 60 cents now, it'll
right,
be 40 cents in November, it'll be 20 cents at the beginning of December, and then it should go away if the market's going to balance. Now, the big question I have for you, Vince, is given that this is the situation, do you see the silver producers now going into 2026's production and hedging it all out to December 2027? Or do you
no, no,
see
no.
them go, or do you see them like pulling that forward and going, I'll hedge it to you until the end of Q1 or Q2?
Yeah.
Because if
Uh,
that's the case, then the silver market fundamentally changes, and everything we thought we knew about the term structure of the silver
right,
market is
right.
going to change as well. Because if the
Okay.
producers refuse to sell forward a year in advance.
Mhm. Okay. I think the effect of what you're talking about is going to happen, but the
Mm-hmm.
player won't be the producers. So,
Okay. Okay.
so let's start with the producers. people who understand mining know there's not a lot of pure silver producers. There's
Right.
not a lot of pure silver production. And silver production has been in deficit for the last X amount of years.
Hmm.
And that deficit is still there, but it's starting to decrease a little bit. But there's not a lot of offload. The two main sources of silver, let's say you need silver to make delivery. You need silver to put it in the SLV vault. You need silver for whatever reason. The two main sources are above ground silver. And those are, but they're not centralized under central bank windows anymore. As you noted,
Right.
they've offloaded that shit over the last 30 years. Okay. So who knows where to find this silver? The bullion banks, JP Morgan is the one that's most informed. And I say that in a nice way, not in a bad way.
Hmm.
JP Morgan, because the two sources of silver above ground, because we don't have enough coming out of the ground to be hedged on a regular basis, are scrap, which comes out in big chunks at a price. You don't know
Hmm.
about it, and boom, it just comes out. We haven't seen any scrap come out in a while, since the mid 30s.
Okay.
The other one is, and this is the one that I do have some understanding of, more detailed, is most of your silver production is not as a primary metal. It's
Right.
as a waste product of zinc, nickel, copper, and basically you take your, I'm sorry, you're gonna say something?
And gold. And gold.
And gold, right, exactly. But the thing is, if you were to open up, it is, but they pull most of it from base metal mining.
Yeah.
And so I'm a nickel miner. I'm mining for nickel, and I take my waste and I put it in a pile. And in the old days, they would call that heap leaching. So you
Hmm.
throw acid over it,
Hmm.
and you pull the silver out, and there's your silver. And it was a waste product,
Hmm.
and it stood there, and at a price, you sold it. Or JP Morgan came by and said, "Hey, you got any silver laying around?" And so they go and they would start looking for it. Now, why JP Morgan? Because you do your banking with JP Morgan, because they took you public,
Right.
because they give you the free toaster for your checking account. And so right? And JP Morgan says, you're going to work with us
Yeah.
and we'll take care of you. And so they're like, okay. And so that's why base metals are more important than silver to determine silver.
Mm. Mm.
When I get reports on commitment of traders, for years I didn't understand it until I actually paid attention to fundamentals. Was you would see commodities, so, you see your softs, you see your grains, and then you see precious metals, and you see, and they're segmented like this: precious and base metals. And most of the banks just threw them all together, right?
Right. Of
But the
course.
smaller banks, the Goldman Sachs's, would actually show me what was important, because in precious metals you had just gold.
Hmm.
In PGMs, you had platinum, palladium, rhodium, whatever, unobtainium.
Iridium. I got all
And
of
then
those.
in, right, and then in base
Tantalum.
metals,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
All the
this is where, and in base metals, you had copper, aluminum, zinc, nickel, and
lead.
silver.
And so, oh, silver was in the base metal group?
Yes. If you pull up certain bank reports, they will throw the silver in with the base metals. They won't even put it in the precious metal side,
Oh, wow.
because they get their silver from their industrial metal people and they look at it economically. I mean, that's it. So
No, it makes
we,
perfect sense. So now I'm going to bring something up to you, because Goldman came out this morning or yesterday with a report. I noted it the other day. I saw the price of copper popped over $5 a pound, right?
right,
And then Goldman's now saying that $10,000 a ton, which is $5 a pound, is now
right,
the floor. Now, interestingly enough, I just and I saw that this morning. Did the market report? This is literally a Wednesday. We're doing this, so in the morning I do my market report for my patrons, and I of course forgot. I'm like, oh, it's the Q4. I haven't updated copper in a while, so I popped up and then put together the monthly and quarterly charts for copper. And oh, by the way, do you see the unbelievable freaking fight over $5 a pound in copper? Like, it
yes,
has been on, especially at the monthly level. The chart's fucking crazy town. But again, this is tying back into silver, because
no, yeah,
if you can keep the
yeah,
price of copper down, then you're keeping the price of silver down, because silver is a byproduct of copper mining.
right, right. So in fact, it's in your inbox, and I know you're busy, but you're a founder on Goldfix, so
Right.
I sent you that report broken out. You have that. You can share that with your patrons if you want,
Okay.
as long as it stays behind your Patreon wall. I don't want to get in trouble with my source, who will, beat the shit out of me. But
Fair enough.
but to make your copper silver thing real, I'm going to tell you what I tell my subscribers, and I've been saying it since I was a floor trader. Historically, when Goldman is bullish gold, they buy gold and they short silver
Right.
because they want pure precious metals. They don't want hybrid precious metals. So you buy $1 million in gold, you sell $1 million in silver. And so how much money are you tying up? Nothing. You're
Right.
doing a metals cash trade. You're doing a carry trade.
Hmm.
And when they get bullish copper, they recommend copper, they buy copper, and they sell silver because it's not a pure industrial play, but it's derived, it's valued
Right.
preciously,
Right.
but it's derived
Industrially.
industrially.
Hmm.
Right. Now, for the last 20 years, I have known that and I've watched it and I've said, okay, they recommend copper, watch silver lag in the rally, and it lags. They recommend gold, watch silver lag. Now, about a year and a half ago, uh, about a year ago, silver started to percolate. And there was a report that came out from a bank. I'm not going to say who it was. And they said silver should never catch up to gold. Silver's not being bought by central banks. Okay, I agree with you. Silver's not this. Okay, I agree with you. And silver, I swear to God, they said silver tarnishes. And I went, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's an institutional reason to not buy silver. And they never said anything negative about silver again. They never went positive on silver, but they started getting bullish, not Goldman, they started getting bullish copper. We like copper. We like copper. So, oh, okay, okay. So you're no longer hedging your copper longs with silver shorts. And so I piled into copper on a
Yeah.
spec trade.
Yeah.
And your point is, if you're
No,
talking,
I'm laughing, Vince, because I'm watching you do exactly what I do when I'm
yeah,
reading headlines. But you're reading reports within for the banks and how they're, yeah, no,
the
this
meta,
is, it's unbelievable. It's
it's
not,
the
thank
same.
you.
It's the same thing. So to caption your picture, it's when Goldman Sachs says they're bullish copper, they are no longer selling silver against their copper long. They're probably buying silver based on what I've seen. So that's what's happening now. And that's it.
And now they're
And
both going up at the same time.
correct. Now they're moving, right? In fact, it's like, is it a precious metal? Is it a base metal? I don't care. So, throughout the 90s and
Well,
O's,
actually, let me just think about this for a second because they're still really trying to fight the $5 level on copper. What
yeah,
if it's actually the other way around? What if they're actually, oh yeah, this is the floor in copper, and they think that's as far as it's going to go, and they're now
right.
actually selling copper shorts against their silver longs because they're worried they need I mean, what if that's the? I mean, I'm just throwing it
No, no,
out
no,
there.
no, no. For the
I'm just throwing
last
it
two
out there.
months,
I know you
no,
rolled your eyes at me, but I want you
no,
to
I
tell me why
rolled
I'm
I
wrong.
rolled your eyes because that's what happened over the last 2 months.
Mm,
Okay. So I'm not saying it's not done happening, but I want you to look at it this way. Half the world that's an institutional macro discretionary investment fund has been long gold because of geopolitics and war and short silver to raise the capital. The other half of the world says, Powell's going to ease. I want to own an economic commodity.
mhm.
Buy copper, sell silver.
Right.
Right? So you buy
Right.
twice as much copper as you sell silver. So in a world,
Mm,
in a Wall Street derived world where everything is a specialization, I want the pure play on X. I want the pure play on Y. Silver is excuse the euphemism, the redheaded stepchild, the orphaned metal.
of
And
course.
so it's not perfect for anyone. Well, there's redheads in my family, right? It's not perfect for anyone. So it gets lumped in with everything. Now, in an environment where all metals are being loved, and the writing was on the wall for that about a year ago, all those smart funds that were long gold and sold silver, they covered their silver. They bought all their silver back, sold half their gold out. And in April of this year, macro discretionary got long. Now I know that Goldman sees those flows, and Goldman's like, all right, time to get out of your silver. Silver's in play the other way. Tariffs, awareness, China buying, all that stuff is happening. And so the end result is silver is now something that is probably in the process of being bought against selling something else. So if I were to say to you, as a macro discretionary fund, the next leg higher is going to be all about silver outperforming gold because I think the banks have hit their level of gold where they're not going to chase it anymore, central banks. But now you got Russia, you got sovereign funds, you got the Saudi Arabians buying silver. So silver is going to outperform on the way higher for the next leg higher. So I'm going to buy silver, sell gold, or I'm going to roll my gold into silver, or I'm
Yeah.
going to roll my copper into silver. Now it's gone from I need the perfect tool to I
Right.
need the thing that covers everything. And
Yeah.
that's what silver.
And that's a very good point. And I'm gonna and what I'll say is you're seeing this already. Oh, by the way, the gold to silver. Now, I know I probably haven't shown this to you though. I know you're a subscriber, so you've probably seen me with my big 25-year chart of the gold to silver
Yeah,
ratio with
yeah,
the
yeah,
with the best fit line, right?
yeah.
Well, what was the high? It was April.
105. Oh, in April,
No,
like
no,
90.
not the number. Just where was the high? It was in April on the tariff tantrum.
Right,
So
right,
gold outperformed silver up to the tariff tantrum, and now it's
right,
rolled over. And
right.
now we're staring at prices. We're right at the fulcrum, or right around 80 to 85 on the gold to silver ratio. Listening to what you're saying, and I agree with you. I think we've made the turn. Now we're going to go lower. The question is, how low is that ratio going to go? Now, when I start hearing people say things like 35 or 30, I'm like, yeah, no, not yeah, no. But 50, 55, 60, absolutely.
Right,
Right.
right,
And so, but then when we hit that bottom is going to be another major geopolitical event. I don't know what it's going to be. I can have
right,
about 6 or 7 things that I can make it. I can turn it into, but
right.
clearly that's where we are. And as for people right now, yeah, I mean, if you use the long term trend of the gold to silver ratio as your guide to how you should be either long or short if you're doing futures, or how you're biasing your buying. If you're above the line, you buy silver versus gold. If you're below the line, you buy gold versus silver. Meaning,
Right.
if you're just accumulating, like you're an average retail investor, I always tell people above the line, 75% silver, 25% gold of your money, and vice versa on the downside, because you're gonna play the ratio against each other in the long run. You're going to maximize your savings dollars, right?
Right, right,
So,
right,
but futures traders can use the thing in exactly the same way if they the tool in exactly the same way. So my
right,
point being here though is that when we start getting into this next year, all the signs are I'm what I'm trying to tease out of this podcast, and my goal here is I am unnerved by the speed by which gold is moving and silver are moving. I'm unnerved by it, not because I don't see the geopolitical stuff. I don't see the incentives as to why the world has changed. We went from central banks being, and the United States, and more importantly, the entire old financial system of London, New York, Chicago, Zurich, that whole complex used to be short the metals structurally in order to prop up the dollar. Now
right,
we have Besant running a weak dollar strategy to impose to fuck them on the tariffs even
right,
harder, and to recapitalize the middle class in the United States, and go back to another conversation you and I had about setting up the offshore dollar VIG versus the onshore dollar VIG. I think they're setting up both of these things at the same time. Gold and silver play into these things, and that's why we have to have an offshore dollar that costs more than an onshore dollar. And by draining the world of the silver and gold, and then collateralizing it some way for domestic purposes, oh, Bob's your uncle. That's your path to a lower cost of capital dollar for U.S. domestics and U.S. corporates
right,
versus anybody who needs to borrow dollars who still short them, and they're going to borrow
right,
them at higher rates. All of this is tied together, and it all fucks City of London, because at the end of the day, this is about the United States declaring and finally putting paid the Declaration of Independence by July 4th, 2026. That is Donald Trump's plan. He has made it abundantly fucking clear. He in my mind, went to London and offered terms of surrender to the king, and the king told him politely to go fuck himself. Well,
right.
okay, now it's on like Donkey Kong. Now I'm taking out your now king sausage fingers. Now I go to war completely on your organized crime network around the world. Now I set things in motion that make middle management attack upper management, and while they play the game, and we start taking out layers of upper management being people like Soros. Okay. Okay. Those guys have got to go because once enough upper management goes, then the high table no longer has any enforcers.
Right. Right.
Okay. That's Trump's strategy. This is a mob war. And he's
Yeah.
got fucking
He's going
Besant
after the
and he's
cops.
got Besant and the Treasury and the Federal Reserve running the biggest fucking operation we've ever seen, and it's glorious. If you want my honest opinion. Now,
No.
that being said, the question then is, if all of those things line up, how high can they go in this scenario?
Um, that's fucking mean to do all that and then throw me the price. All right,
No,
I got
no,
the
no, 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 no. I don't even need to throw price at you.
no. I got the
What I
I
need
got
you to,
the
I know you have an answer, but let me just say, I didn't mean to put you on the spot and say, give me a price, Vince. No, what I'm talking about is you can talk in qualitative terms. I'm happy to do that. So
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, no. And I'm just fucking with you. You're not putting me on the spot. I mean, I was about to do a deep learning dive on geopolitical, mechanics, and I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, we're talking about gold and silver again? That's what I was thinking. Oh,
Sorry.
so I mean, there's so many ways to answer that, but what I do want to say is oh boy. Um, I want to start with something that you mentioned. You mentioned onshore versus offshore money,
Yeah.
dollar. Okay. Could you say that to me again? Because it matches up with something that I'm seeing.
Okay. What I'm talking about, and it's something that you and I have talked about in the past. And I'll be honest with you, I think you and I were the first ones to ever even posit this
Right.
in public. I mean, really, which is that the United States is setting up. I think there's a number of things that are happening here. The Fed is being set up to be completely reformed, to be a different entity than it is currently. It's not. Its job will no longer be to backstop everything imaginable and be
Right.
be the banking regulator and all these things that we never wanted it to be. Basically, we want the Fed to stop being the fucking Bank of England.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so we need to get back to something closer to the original conception of the Fed, where it's an onshore, it's a defender of the offshore price of the par value of the dollar to offshore markets, and a defender of the domestic corporate paper markets, which will then keep the cost of capital inside the United States lower than it would be overseas. So that's the thing I'm talking about here. We have the tariffs are the lever by which to turn that crank to keep that arbitrage,
Right.
that wall up. That's what the tariffs actually are.
Right.
Um, Along with the ability to sell dollars into the market and internationalize them through the stablecoin market and everything else. Okay, so
All right.
that's what I'm thinking, and I know why the government shut down. I know why the Democrats are committing ritualistic suicide over the shutdown, but we'll get to that later.
But I want the reason I asked that is because I wanted to make sure of your hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Offshore dollar was going to be worth more than the onshore dollar in terms of availability.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
So just
So
think of
that
cost
ties
of capital
into
inside the United States at 2% and offshore 5%.
right.
Whatever.
And
It
the
could be
reason
50 basis points, but I'm just going with 2 and 5
I
just to
wanted
make.
to make I wanted to make sure because that is what Trump and Bessent are doing. Now they haven't said it that way, but I want to spell this out from a plumbing point of view.
Mm-hmm.
The United States seeks to keep, look, I'm saying what you're saying in a different way, and then I'm going to go
Sure.
into the plumbing of it, right? The United States wants to keep liquidity deep in the US, which will mean a weaker dollar. That's all very inflationary. I know that, but that's not what we're talking about here. This is a geopolitics thing. And at the same time, make the dollar offshore dear. By dear, I mean expensive,
Mm-hmm.
something value. Make it a store of value offshore and make it a means of commerce onshore. Okay? Now,
Mm-hmm.
there are many ways to do that. Tariffs is a way. If you want access to our customer base, you're going to pay us. Our dollar may be weaker here, but you're going to give us a shit ton more of them to do business here. Fine, that's one way. A second way is, and this is the way that we're moving towards, is a market access charge. Now, you and I have talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
Market access charge is a nice, fancy way of saying this. One of the problems that the US has is that the dollar is too strong overseas. Now, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying we don't want it strong overseas compared to on the domestic side, But what we want the dollar to be strong for trade purposes, not for parking lot purposes. So because we have a global market, because you can hit a button and throw your money into dollars, that makes the dollar too unnaturally used as a free parking spot.
Right.
Everyone parks their money in dollars until they need it. And that makes our currency stronger than it needs to be. Now, we've tolerated that. We've lived with that. We've worked around it, wink, wink. But now we need that to stop.
Yep.
And the way to need that to stop, as I just said, is the two-tiered currency. Now, how do you make your currency offshore strong and onshore accessible? The way to do it is you have a money access charge, a market access charge. So you say you can no longer convert your euros into dollars free of charge. There's no longer a free transfer that the bank gets in the middle of and makes a little bit of vig on. That's gone. You need to have, I'm making this up, but I'm not far off. You need to have a contract with us. If you want free access to our nightclub beyond the velvet ropes, you have to be a member. And to be a member is you have to cut a trade deal and you have to invest money in foreign direct investment.
Yes.
And we're going to give you carte blanche, dollars in, dollars out. But that's what we're doing now. To put this in a more retail, more accessible version. Remember when ATMs started, they were all free.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the beginning, and then when you realize that some are more powerful than others, what did they start doing? Well, I can get my money from a Chase ATM or any affiliated bank for free. But a third party bank, it costs me $2. It costs me $1. So if Chase is number one and Bank of America, let's say for argument's sake, is number two, I can get Chase, Chemical, all these old banks that are no longer in existence. I could get my money for free. But for Bank of America, we're going to call Bank of America Europe here.
Right.
For Bank of
It's
America,
appropriate. So
right, exactly. But it's true. It is appropriate. It's true. But I mean, to back it out, basically, it's like this. I'm a Saudi Arabian who wants to get dollars. I go to an ATM machine. It costs me $2. I'm a Saudi Arabian who wants to get dollars, and I've cut a deal with the US. I go to an ATM machine. It's free. We're charging people for access to the network.
yes.
Now, for the plumbers in your group out there, for the people who just understand just general physics and construction, when you build a house, the plumbing is an expense. The electricity is an expense to the house owner. It's not something that they pay for it, don't get me wrong, but it's an expense. It's not a profit center.
Mm.
The profit center is from you selling drinks at the bar. So the plumbing is the plumbing and the drinks at the bar are where you make your money. The US has realized that all drinks are the same. It's the plumbing that makes ours better. And so we're going to charge you for access to our network, which is our plumbing. We are this is where it goes back to, you said housing, I said gold. So far, neither have happened, but it's probably going to happen to housing first with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, the government is monetizing its assets. That's best sent talking. You say housing, I say gold. Who cares? The thing that they can monetize that I didn't see, well, I saw it, but I didn't see it. We talked about it, is they're monetizing the plumbing.
Yes.
The plumbing is an asset. Do you want access to our safety? Pay us the fucking ATM charge.
That's right.
And it's where it's either going to be tariffs, it's going to be a market access charge, it's going to be stuff that you're talking about. It's going to be you can't use our stable coins unless you cut a deal. And
That's
so
right.
what you do is the dollar gets weaker against the countries you're doing trade with. Oh, the Saudis, you're part of the club. We're going to weaken the dollar against you. No charge. And so they're going to buy more of our stuff.
Uh-huh.
And if you're a country that doesn't have access, well, the next time there's a war, good luck putting your money into the dollar. You're not going to be able to do that. And
if you do, it's going to cost you way more than it would cost you to go somewhere else or whatever. And we don't care.
Right. We're charging.
And more importantly, when I stop to think about the way you just described that,
it's a cover charge.
No. I know. No. You're complete. I get all the mechanics. I'm now thinking about the politics of it. See, first thing I do is I say, well, then who would put that fucking system in place?
Well, in my opinion, this is going to be something you're going to have the right answer for. But what I've been seeing is that Trump is negotiating a Plaza 2.0 deal, one bilateral deal at a time. So go to Saudi Arabia, get a $600 billion investment, give them free dollar access, and give them special nation status.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at, I know, I understand that. What I'm saying is just fundamentally that system
Right,
where you build this beautiful financial network, and
right,
then you charge access for it, and you destroy your fucking people
right,
while the financial system makes more and more and more and more money. Whose
right,
system is that? Well, obviously, it's the old British system, and that's how the Marshall Plan just drained the capital and the vitality of the United States, and just to destroy the middle class in America. I'm dead serious here. Like, all the inflation, all of the money went out, right? They were getting the interest on the cheap fucking money going out, and we were getting cheap depreciating consumer goods on the way back in. Right?
right,
That's why our houses got cheaper. That's why our lives got immensely worse. That's why our food quality went down, our standard of living went down over our parents, blah blah blah, all of this shit. It's because empire of this form, and this is why I keep coming back to fucking London over this, because this has been the British system for 300 fucking years. And they did it in so many other ways. They did it when they were ascendant. They did it, and then they just transferred everything over to us. And again, that's why it's so damn important to understand that the Crown Corporation, in effect, and the British East India Company morphed into the very post Bretton Woods institutions that were supposed to hand the fucking keys to the candy store of the world to the United States to lead, and yet somehow these motherfuckers were still running the goddamn show behind the scenes. And then
right,
guess what? We got blamed for becoming the empire.
right,
And that's when it got, and I'm like, when I started watching all of this, and every turn I saw somebody else blaming the United States and letting the fucking British or letting the Europeans off the fucking hook for this shit, I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm over it. It's why I got tired, so very tired, and I'm now openly hostile to having any fucking any European commentator, period. You speak with a European accent, other than my friend Alex Craner, because he gets this shit. You speak with a European accent and you do nothing but shit on the United States, fuck you, you're dead to me. Because you don't understand the real access, the real problem here, which is fundamentally you are nothing but a welfare queen. You have been living on the back of the American middle class and the American political system and the American legal system and our brilliant corporate law and all of this shit for 75 fucking years, and getting paid to sit around and get 6 weeks fucking vacation. You average, or 8 weeks vacation, Germany. But we have to scrimp and save, and half of us don't even get 2 weeks paid fucking leave over here in America. Where do you think that came from, motherfucker? This is why I have no fucking patience for Germans or French or anybody else. I got no patience for it anymore, Vince. And I'm going on the warpath with these people because everybody needs to get it. And the American commentators who still don't get it, our peers, fuck them. I'm going after them too. They need to get this, because if you're not understanding what the real fucking war is, then you're carrying water for the people who are bankrupting you. And we have to get serious. This isn't just about positioning in gold and silver and how to make money and the number go up. This is about the future of fucking civilization.
right.
And I knew we were going to get here at some point, but I'm so very friggin' happy that you went through all of the plumbing, because now people have a friggin' action plan. How do you take advantage of what's going on here? This is a fundamental state change in the gold market, the silver market, and potentially what's next is the oil market.
Right. Well, that just that sinks Great Britain if that happens. Absolutely, no doubt about that. Um,
I'm sorry.
you said,
I know. I know. I was. It's an audio only podcast, folks.
no,
I was
I
doing
took
that rant.
notes on every.
I know. Vince's the look on Vince's face was like, "Oh my god, he's so freaking right." But I'm like, when is he going to shut up at the same time? But I'm like,
All
sorry.
right. No, 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 no. So what you see and viscerally understand, I can say, not being falsely modest, I can say that I've identified an economic model changes and errors. So when you
Right.
say it's been this amount of years, I'm like, yeah, it's been. So let me say in different words what you said without the political aspect of it,
Sure.
because it's happened that way. I will
Mhm.
lay the blame. I will lay the blame, but watch. All right.
Sure.
At some point, the United States of America's standard of living got to a point where we can no longer afford to make things at a low cost. And so we decided to start outsourcing that. So in the late 70s, when capitalism went on strike, in the early 80s, we decided to make our economy financial. So we financialized our economy. And when we financialized the economy, unless you really understood what was going on as a middle class person, you were destroyed. So we triaged the middle class. So anyone
Hmm.
who had values and worked didn't have anything to leave for their kids. Anyone who took the concept of being a financial person or the rentier class, of which I'm a part, when you think
Hmm.
about it, they excelled. So that's like they basically, the middle class was used, they harvested the middle class to take that money, give a piece to the bankers, and then rebuild other countries. That's what you basically said. The
Hmm.
Marshall Plan and what have you were ways to tap the wealth of the middle class, tap the wealth of America. The poor people have no money. The rich people have dodges to get away from it. And the middle class, well, they're just dumb saps doing the work. And I'm speaking about my family.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing. Now I'll tie in the Great Britain thing. Great Britain, an empire who lost its empire after World War II in decline, wanted to stick around.
Of
And
course.
financialization was an opportunity for it because they're never going to be the manufacturing economy that we could be. So it really was a lifeline to Great Britain because geographically they were centered in the middle. And so the banking class, whether it be American or English, is all going to be about the renter's economy.
Hmm.
So England, now this is where I don't know where it happens, and you seem to know, and that is this is where the whole the Biden junta thing, it makes sense because there's banking and there's rentier banking, and so it's commercial banking is supposed to invest or loan money to businesses to grow.
Yes.
And now that all they're doing is they're making money off of fees from transactions, banks have become brokers, rentier class, intermediaries, getting in the middle, uh, not even taking risk. And England literally is in the middle of the East and West, and England literally has the financialization technology. I want you to, people need to understand that when Maggie Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, and I'm not big fans of theirs, but the promise of that they created is nowhere near what we are now. It's been distorted. Small government became big government. Innovation became rentier behavior, and the banks made more and more money and bigger percentages off of the depleted middle class. Now, as we flip back to manufacturing, that really, London is our broker. We're the business. And
Hmm.
so as we flip back to taking our broker in-house, London loses its power. And as financialization ends,
Yeah.
the new London is, let's say, Hong Kong, because that's the financial capital in terms of financialization of the East. I mean, I could go into more of this, but I don't really
Well,
think I need.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it. And what we're also seeing is, I mean, this is gonna, I mean, where I would go next with all of this is, of course, not within the scope of this podcast, not why I want to have you on here. Happy to have this conversation with you,
Right.
effectively off camera or whatever, because I've had this conversation in every other venue. Because when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm talking about, okay, so now why is the Civil War thing happening? Why are we dealing with
Oh,
Portland Antifa, why this, why this, why that, and it's all laying out on this. It's all a reflection of this exact same thing that we've talked about in this podcast.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it's just a different venue. This war is multimodal. Okay, this war is theater, for lack of a better term. You've got financial war, you've got cultural war, you've got geopolitical war, you've got economic war, you've got literal military, boots on the ground, or at least in this case, black shirts on the ground. Like
right,
it's all part of the same fight, which is how do you leverage the power of middle management
right,
against the existing traitorous middle management and bureaucracy, leverage
right,
that to go after upper management to take out the legs of the high table.
right,
That's in effect what I'm getting, what I've been getting, what I've been like trying to conceptualize this game in. And the problem, of course, for so many commentators is they don't see the world in that, at least, and there's maybe even more layers than three, but I'm just going to go with three because I think that's the best way to describe it that I understand it at this point. To understand it at those levels and then go, oh, because if you don't understand that tri-level game and you don't understand that the rules of the game at every level are slightly different and
right,
the players are slightly different and
right,
how you read how they operate, how they read how they move is slightly different, but it's all in service of a particular overarching strategy and an overarching conflict, which is ultimately, and if you don't, if you're still a libertarian listening to me after I've excoriated you for the last year and a half, fine, you got a stronger stomach than I can't listen to fucking Marxists anymore. Which is to say that you understand that this is a mob boss, this is a fight between mob bosses,
right,
and you're going all the way back to it, and it really is a that. And when you understand that's the way this actually operates, then you don't have to pass judgment on it, you don't have to like it, dislike it, or anything else. It's what's happening. You can be root and branch, like morally opposed to the whole fucking thing.
right.
And I am, but unfortunately, it's the world we live in. And at the end of the day, I'm going to fight for the opportunity to reestablish civilization against what looks to me like purely anti-civilizational forces at every above the upper management level. And even at the upper management level, it looks anti-civilizational because
Right.
the whole goal is to strip all of your wealth, which is your time, away from you, and to ensure that you never get ahead. And they just keep stealing all of your time while you complain about it, and then ask them, like Oliver Twist, please, sir, may I have some more? And then they slap the ball out of your fucking hand.
Right.
Like, this is where we are. So you got to feel it viscerally while you engage with it intellectually and in the specific, where your expertise lies. And that's why I bring Vince on the podcast as often as I do, is because Vince has expertise in the areas of finance and trading that I don't have, because this is how he makes his living, folks. This is how he's
Right.
always made his living, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
I mean, and this is the thing. So I really, as always, appreciate all of this. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say before we get out the door, but I think this has been a pretty phenomenal way of encapsulating everything that's happening and everything that I'm seeing. So go ahead.
I'd like to just say two things that corroborate again from another perspective. Um, I'm listening to you, and I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone who doesn't believe you. All
Mm-hmm.
right,
Yes,
and because you constantly do that to test yourself to see if you're being
of
objective.
course. That's
And so when I run into a situation that seems incredulous or that's outside my scope of understanding,
mhm.
like I'm naive when it comes to MI6 and shit like that. I know that, right? But what I personally do is I do the who benefits and who suffers.
Yeah,
So while I may disagree with you in my heart, the math says, and I'm not saying I do, but I have in the past,
right. Yeah.
the math says, well, shit, all the arrows point to them benefiting, and all the arrows point to them not benefiting. Can I find at least one fucking single thing that the WEF doesn't benefit from that comes out of this? And the answer is no. So that says to me empirically that you can't be argued with. The other thing, and this is purely from my side, from my behavioral science and psych training, 5%, I'm making a number up. 5% of the world is um, cluster B personality. That's narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopathic.
Mm-hmm.
And those people, whether it be a serial killer or the CEO of a company, they are what they are. But
Yeah.
as you go up the echelons of power, the concentration goes from 5% to 50%.
Right.
Now, why does that matter? It matters because in order to remain incumbent and remain in power, you must be ruthless. And I don't mean that as oh, the rules of power. Fuck that. I mean ruthless in the sense that you don't understand other humanity, other
Right.
human.
Right.
And so you say, I am, I need to be in power. And so incumbency at the top that likes power is the sociopath. And so
Yes.
at that level, they're not going to voluntarily step down. They're not going to say, "Ooh, you're right, I'm wrong. Let me change my ways." No, no. They're going to say, "You're in my way." They just want to win. Now, there are times when I just want to win, but I'm not going to kill unless it's to defend someone else being killed.
Of course. Of course.
They're going to kill.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
They're
Yeah.
going to kill. What I'm saying is there is a this is crazy, but I read a book about this called Political Ponerology, which basically means the politics of evil, uh, and it was written by a Pole who witnessed being occupied by Germans, the Nazis, and
Right.
then after that war they were occupied by the communists.
Right.
And what he concluded was that they were the same people behaviorally.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the people that were so at the highest levels of the Nazis and the communists, Stalin and Hitler, it's the same person,
Yep.
power hungry sociopath. So I guess what I'm saying is when you figure, for me, the moments when I don't completely agree, I go, who benefits and who suffers? And I go, okay, that lines up. And then I go, yeah, to be an executive in a company, you have to be willing to cheat on your wife. You have to be willing to cheat on your kids because that's what cheating on your wife is. You
Right.
have to not care. And
Right.
so they're not going to go freely. And that's what wars start over. Wars
Mm-hmm.
start over incumbents at the WEF and Davos who have a severe allergy to having a conscience.
Of course. Well,
And that's
again, and this is Vince. This was like for me. Like I've read a lot of. It's funny. People say you're very well read, Mr. Longo. Well, I'm like, no, I'm actually not very well read. To be honest with you, I'm just like I'm observationally very, very rich, but I'm not. I haven't like sat down and read like chapter and verse like
right.
shit that you would assume that I've read. But I have read The Road to Serfdom.
Yeah, I
And
haven't read that one.
you should read The Road to Serfdom.
I should
Specifically,
read that.
specifically, you should read chapter 10 of The Road to Serfdom, which is why the worst get on top. Because if you read why that
Really?
just that chapter, you will have described for you exactly what you just described, which is that the concentration of, okay, so cluster B personality is 5%, but in halls of power it's 50%. Well, I know why this is. Hayek literally lays out a simple mechanistic argument as to why
Really?
in The Road to Serfdom, why we get why government of these types attracts that type of behavior. Let me put it to you this way: this personality. If you give it gives somebody a little bit of power, and then then the system attracts people without morals and without power, and it concentrates. And the process of destroying a moral society is the process of creating a more and more and more advanced bureaucracy of this type and kind, until eventually we wind up with exactly, in many ways, what we're dealing with now, which is that we're ruled, here we are paying taxes. It's the meme that I put up all the time. It's a picture of the earth with a big arrow that says, you are here paying taxes to pedophiles. Right. And
right.
Okay, right.
The mentality that makes you a pedophile is the same mentality that says, I'll kill you for this.
And it's the same thing. So you accept no limits on your behavior. You accept no limits on your behavior and everything else. So I've always, the chapter 10 of The Road to Serfdom was transformational for me when I read it back in 2006 or whatever the hell it was. And I'm like, I just view the whole fucking world that way. And so I understand systemically, we built systems government systems, corporate systems, this system, that system. We built systems that maximize psychopathology by rewarding it as opposed to minimizing it, which is what civilization is supposed to do. So when I use the term civilizational, anti-civilizational, this is exactly what I'm talking about. But sometimes when you get to this point, you have to have a man who has been anti-civilizational and understands how to operate and survive and thrive in this anti-civilizational environment, but yet has retained some of his actual humanity in the process, which is a very rare person, right? And we're watching it play out.
Right.
That's who Scott Besson is. That's who I think Jerome Powell is. That's who I think Donald Trump is in their own way. And they may have come to that realization very late in life. They may have been bad men for a long time, but bad men who have the opportunity to leave a legacy, and they don't want that legacy to be, I was a shitbag property developer from Queens.
Right.
I don't care if it's his narcissism that's right. I don't care if it's his ego that's
no, it's fight
whatever.
Fire with
if it drives him to do good things, I don't give a fuck. If he just wants this fucking, everything that drives Trump is that he wants to be the fifth head on Mount fucking Rushmore, I don't give a shit. If he saves the country, I don't give a fuck. Right. And that's the way you have to, it's all of this stuff. So, somebody asked me the other day, I was on Twitter either yesterday or the day before. They asked me on Twitter. They said, how do you function spending your life inside the heads of all these really evil people? I'm like, it's really fucking difficult, dude. And I don't drink casually anymore. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard, but this is what you have to do in order to be able to understand their motivations, but yet still be grounded enough in reality for very small values thereof that we exist at this point.
Right.
Like, especially in the Phil Dickian sense, like I've been training myself intellectually my entire life for this fight. I didn't realize it, but that's what's happening. And so when I do this like multimodal, intersectional, all puns intended, of course,
string theory for politics,
I do between politics, geopolitics, finance and culture and everything else, and psychology. I'm doing this on purpose. It's because we got to that. This is how I got to that point. But that's a skill set that I couldn't help myself. So what you've done here is I'm now what I love watching is how you have leveled up by just taking your one area of expertise and then applying it across and being flexible enough of mind. I mean, I really appreciate this because I don't run into this on a regular basis, and it's great and it's perfect. So I'm really glad you put it the way you did, because what you did was you independently came to the exact conclusions that Hayek reached like 80 years ago. And it's not particularly, I wouldn't say it's particularly difficult, but it's a brilliant, distillation of a certain aspect of human, the human. Like, this is where we are. So
and right, exactly. I mean, I approached it from this is what we do, right? I mean, there is a term that I think is really an important term, and I don't think there's no one in the world does it anymore. Not enough people, and it's called consilience. And consilience is when you use different methodologies to come to the same conclusion. At the simplest level, it's this: what's more accurate, measuring something with a ruler 10 times? Or measuring something with 3 different rulers? And the answer is measuring something with 3 different rulers, because if the ruler that you're using is inaccurate, in this case, let's say it's the way I look at things through finance, then I'm going to get the wrong answer every fucking time. But if I use the Luongo ruler, the Vince ruler, and someone else's ruler, I'm going to come to the same conclusion. It's kind of like you're keeping yourself honest by using different methodologies, to corroborate each other from a different point of view.
In many ways, as scientists, we it's the difference between precision and accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. It's not precise, but it will be accurate, and then you have to make sure that your yardstick is the right yardstick.
Right. Well, you can be precisely wrong by measuring this, by having a systemic error within your, by having miszeroed the instrument or whatever, and you can be precisely wrong, or you can be accurate. And depending on your analytic tool, which in this case is now the fungibility of information in in a geopolitical space of fake information, you're going to be hitting with a shot. You're going to have the precision of a shotgun with the choke let off, as opposed to a rifle. You're not going to be hitting sub 1 MOA. And you have to realize that, so you go out there and you do what you can, and you set up like these shotgun blasts of insight. And then you like look at the Venn diagram of where they overlap, and then
you connect the dots.
Then you get rid of the stuff that's outside of it. You hold on to it because it may be operative later. But
no. When you said precision versus accuracy, the analogy that I was taught is similar. It's the archery analogy, right? Yeah. I shoot 10 arrows and they're all within a millimeter of each other at 6 o'clock. That's precise.
Yep.
It's not accurate.
Yep.
I shoot 10 arrows and they're all within an inch of each other at the bullseye. That's accurate, but not precise.
Right.
If you're precise and you're inaccurate, you don't know unless you use something to measure it.
Right.
And that would be another bow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why this is so, that's why what you and I do together is, I think it's so valuable. I know it's valuable for me personally. And I hope, of course, obviously, I hope the audience finds it useful, and I hope it's also valuable for you. And I think it is.
Of course it is. Of course.
So, I'm as much of an asshole as I am. I don't like to speak for other people.
All different flavors of asshole. I am definitely one as well.
So, but with that said, Vince, I think we'll leave it there. Like, understand, folks, that just to recap some things, we're at a very interesting state change in the way the silver market is trading, with a lot of things that Vince has pointed out today. And if you didn't understand all the terminology or terms of art or anything else, well, that's why you can listen to the podcast twice, because it's you'll get it. The second thing is that this ties into our the everything we're seeing at the Trump, what the Trump administration is trying to do. The one thing we didn't discuss today, and we'll leave on the cutting room floor, is how the shutdown and what the Democrats' strategy is, because it seems so unbelievably counterproductive, but it's actually not. It just is. I know it is. And so so with all those things said, I think we'll leave it there, because we're at 90 minutes. And I think that's good. That's more than good enough for a podcast. And we'll do it again soon, as always. Mr. Lanci, tell everybody where in the hell they can find you and how they can support you being brilliantly Vince.
Obtuse.
Brilliantly Vince.
Fucking around.
And obtuse, but at the same time.
It's great to use a big word that makes you sound stupid, but really makes you smart, So, it's like, obtuse, what the fuck does that mean? It means I'm dumb,
I'm obstreperous. So there you go.
That's a good one, right? Exactly. Well, first of all, the feeling is mutual. I mean, I'm not gonna take up too much of your people's time on that. But you can find me on VBL Goldfix on Substack. So Goldfix Substack. You can find me on Twitter. It's Soren the K, but just look up VBL's Ghost, and that'll give you the right handle. The other thing I wanted to say is, and in one of your mini diatribes about the sociopathy and all that stuff, I just want to say this: Trump is an asshole, but he's our asshole, and he knows how those assholes think. So I don't care if honestly, I know he's lining his pockets, but as long as he wants to win against the people that are lining their pockets and not doing anything for us, he's my man. That's it.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay. It's funny. Like I grew up in a Catholic household.
Right.
And I grew up in the last thing right after the door. I grew up in a Catholic household with a bunch of people who not only did they want you to do the right thing, but they always wanted you to do the right thing for the right reasons all the time, even if you didn't understand what the right reason was.
Right.
And then if you didn't do all those things didn't line up perfectly, then you were a bad person. This is why I don't speak to my family, because
it's a little bit extreme.
They disagree with what the right reason for doing anything is, or allow for. And this is supposed to be a Catholic household, and we're supposed to be Christian, and actually, I don't know, God, ask for forgiveness. Like, no, you never gave me that, so you're not getting it. But that's what that's one of the things that we're dealing with here is that ultimately we have to realize that Donald Trump can be doing the right thing, and not all of his reasons are okay, and that's okay.
I don't care why he's doing it. I care about the result.
And we have to be comfortable with that.
Yeah,
and if you're not comfortable with the fact that he's not perfect and a perfectly white knight, well, then, I'm sorry, you don't get to play in the kids at the big kids sandbox. You get to go suck a fucking thumb in the corner like the 5-year-old that you are. And I would suggest to all the people on both the Marxist left and the libertarian right, stay out of the election process and stay out of politics, because you're not built for it, period. And let the adults in the room deal with the problem and be comfortable with the fact that you suck, or level up. That's where I am. I'm TFL1728 on Twitter. You can see it. You can follow us at Patreon/Gold Goats and Guns. Vince, this has been an absolute blast. We will do it again soon, my friends. Keep your stick on the ice.